Alright guys, that's Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying all day so far. Another absolutely phenomenal day here at the Call of Duty World Championship. So far this weekend, we've talked about the venue, we've talked about the crowd, but we've also talked about the storylines, right? And to create one of the best Call of Duty events of all time, you're going to need all three. We've got two of them, and as it's shaping up, we've certainly got all three of them. Wow, what a day of Call of Duty. OpTic Texas make top 3 at the World Championship for the first time since it was online way back in 2020. How much further then can they go, given their opposition in the next round? So many crazy things happened today. Very much a treat to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Who is the watch party, by the way? We finally got it all up and running today. So yeah, had the watch party running all day. You know, the helmets are back in business. Boozer and all the boys put together these awesome helmets for us. Honestly, thank you guys so much for putting together. They had the OpTic ones back at Major 3. They put us together some custom breaking point stuff here this time. I thought it was spectacular. Look at the venue in the background, by the way. I mean, yeah, it ain't a bad setup we're cooking up there. By the way, though, Rookie of the Year confirmed today. When I heard Blaze confirm this, so before everything was getting ready to go, they do the rehearsals in the morning, and I heard Blaze and the guys were doing a rehearsal for Rookie of the Year. I thought, okay, it's interesting, who's it gonna be? And turns out it was Gwyn, and to me this was something of a surprise, right? I thought that it would be probably either aBeZy or Estriel, to be honest, just because, you know, both of those guys made it to the World Championship. You can definitely justify Gwyn. I think that's the exciting thing about this year's Rookie of the Year. There are justifications you can make a number of ways in terms of who you think actually deserved it, and there's an argument to say Gwyn should based on the numbers. My opinion was that on LAN he wasn't quite as good, the team wasn't quite as good overall. Maybe that shouldn't matter, but I think like overall results should play some weight, and I just thought it was interesting that Gwyn won it and had to like did a video, or like a remote video to kind of do his acceptance, because he's obviously not there, is he, in Texas for the event. So you know, obviously congratulations to Gwyn, but definitely one of the more controversial ones we've had in a few years now, which is cool to see actually some controversy, I suppose, in play, because we don't often have much debate in Rookie of the Year or even in MVP, but we certainly did this year. And Simp, Mr. MVP, he's back in it again, the 2024 season MVP. This to me was pretty expected. I thought they'd give it to Simp, but I generally think over the course of the season, this is probably what they should have done, and I think is the justified approach. But you can very much argue Scrappy, you can very much argue HyDra, and we'll talk a bit more on that over the coming minutes here. But let's dive into the series, man, because wow, what a day of COD. So much to say on this. Miami Surge was always going to be a banger. I honestly think with this series it was great to watch, but you could genuinely have just tuned in for the map 5 because it was always going 5, and that's what happens. Surge win the game 1 emphatically, by the way, but Miami again, their search and destroy continues to impress. 04 had a shocker map 2. He went 0-9, and then he started at the final map. I think he was only 0-1 the final map, but he definitely started 0-10 or something. And then we had the control, though. This was a crazy one actually, and Vikul was talking all sorts of trash. You gotta say fair play to Vikul, I think, the way he's handled this weekend so far, because as we full well know, this guy has his problems with the crowd, right? Based on what happened at Major 4 when he said, like, you know, F OpTic, F the green wall and all this, based on, you know, things that had happened in the community over the last couple of months and in his chat, I think, and stuff like this anyway. Vikul weren't happy with OpTic, OpTic weren't happy with him, and as a result, the fan base today was very much against the Miami Heretics and Vikul himself. But when push came to shove, he was able to deliver the result, especially this final map. This was a pretty criminal one, I've got to say, for the Seattle Surge to lose. I was really hoping Miami won this because I had Miami winning this 3-2. Ace had Surge winning 3-2, so, you know, I had to get the dub over him. aBeZy clutches the 1v2, but then the next couple of rounds, Miami clutch up, and this was pretty criminal round, to be fair. Like, they had a first blood hit. Vikul dies, by the way, in this spot, right? So Vikul goes down, he gets caught out over by the B bomb site, and you gotta think at this point, it's almost a guaranteed round win, right? Like, Vikul goes down, MettalZ can't kill anyone on the cross, it's a clean cut 4 versus 3 retake, but somehow ReeaL sneaks through the back, gets this kill, then they get another kill actually over towards the pinch as well. Lucky finds this one, and then it's a 3 versus 2. Both of the guys are stuck up on the tractor over there by the site, and you know, it's job done. Miami played this really well. So a game 5, round 11, all the bread on the line for the World Championship. Like, it doesn't get much better than this, right, in terms of qualifying for it. But yeah, you get the picture. Interesting comments from Vikul as well, right, because of course Gwyn was not even there, and Vikul made a bit of an interesting statement about that and said, yeah, that's my Rookie of the Year, ReeaL. meanwhile, he's actually here playing. So that's my boy, right, kind of saying, look, Win shouldn't have won that because he ain't even here. That was the implication. And then Vikul, as he's walked out, is flipping off the crowd. You know, honestly, I love the storylines that this center stage creates. I think that's another point as well about the center stage. It creates so many great trash talking moments. Like, all sorts is going on there, and it's just, they should do this as much as they possibly can. If there's a possibility in future years and future venues to do this head-to-head, they gotta do it. They gotta try it, because this is just fantastic, and it needs to be this way as many times as they possibly can do it in the coming years, as far as I'm concerned. Kind of interesting, like, let's say you've played map 2 and you want to go, you know, for a piss or whatever. You've got to kind of walk out through the crowd again, which is, I don't know, maybe that's not ideal, but look, it is what it is. The players are going to deal with it, and Seattle Surge bow out of the tournament. This guy, I mean, yeah, you see this is pretty funny. There was lots of guys pulling this off, not fist bumping Vikul, but you know, I guess it's all fun and games really at the end of the day, and Miami get the victory in advance. The Seattle Surge, they've improved, but they still bow out of the tournament top 8, not what they would like to be. They've got considerations to make for next year. You know, we've always talked about Huke's playstyle and stuff like this. When it works, but there are moments where he's going to throw away his life, but that's kind of how this team is going to play the game. But frankly, they're up 5-3 final map and they threw it away, and we saw other teams throw away games today. There was no doubt about that. This was, though, the Los Angeles Guerrillas, right? This was an important revenge series here for Toronto. They lost, of course, to the Guerrillas the very first rounds way back at Major 4. That was a shocker. This time, no such mistakes, and I think for the Guerrillas, it was pretty obvious to me that they made the great run at Major 4. Was that going to continue? Realistically, were they going to be able to replicate that come to the World Championship? Seems relatively unlikely, and that's what ended up happening. It was close in the sense that if SGL doesn't blow himself up with a nade here, who knows what happens? He banks it off the back of his teammate, and then it gets blown up, which is highly unfortunate for SGL, right? He tries a nade mid, his teammate throws a trophy, and then he gets blown up by it. And look, this game continues. Ultra eventually take it in around 11, and then the control was, again, I think kind of a foregone conclusion. Toronto were going to win it at that point. So Scrappy was talking trash. You know what he's going to do. He's going to rile up the green wall and say, look, we're going to come for this trophy. We're going to make the losers bracket run. But it's not going to be easy for Toronto, right? Because their next round game is, well, not one they would maybe have expected to find in the losers bracket at this point. But a clean dub for Toronto. The high-rise control as well was, it was kind of competitive and a good map for Guerrillas, but they end up getting the victory. Map 1 was dominant, and yeah, not a great bow out for the Guerrillas, right? Especially because they're not even going to be at the Esports World Cup. The team has decided to decline that invitation, and there's rumours that these players have been linked to other teams and stuff like that, so very interesting what's going to happen there. But let's talk about, I mean, there was some banger series today, but this was the one that many were waiting for. I love this shot as well, by the way, like as they introduced OpTic right here, the guys walked out. They walked out a different way, right? They had like a guy kind of chaperoning them through the VIP section. I thought it was kind of fire. And then this kind of angle, you can't quite see it really, but there was a slightly wider shot here where you get Blaze in the middle, the 4 OpTic players, Jacob on the right with a headset on, and then eventually Karma on the left with a headset on. I think it was just really cool, right? Just to see, this camera shot is so good, I think. You got the Codling logo in the background, the red and the green, you know, one side with Jacob standing there talking to the team. I just thought it was brilliant to look at, and obviously the energy was absolutely electric in the venue. But the series did not start the way that OpTic were hoping that it would start. They end up losing the game 1. They had a pretty decent start to this one actually, and they had some chances on the rotation, but again, it was a pretty slow game from Kenny and Dashy, right? And I think this is definitely a storyline. At the end of the day, a win is a win for the teams, and they will take the win 100%. And OpTic know they can play better than this. But still, I think it's interesting that there's been a couple of hard points now where both Kenny and Dashy aren't really having the takeover moments. Now, it's not mattering because Shotzzy and Pred are doing everything. And if you get all 4 guys doing it all, as they were on Sunday back at Major 3, they're basically going to be unbeatable. But, you know, so if they are going to be warming up and continuing to improve, that's what it's going to take. I think, like, OpTic will not be able to win this series and say, oh, you know, we're good enough to win the entire thing. They know they've got to get better. They know they've got to clean some things up. But, you know, the win at some point here looks pretty unlikely. This game 1 was not one that I'm sure OpTic were expecting to lose. Pred was going off, by the way. I don't know what Lamar, and I'm pretty sure that Accuracy at least has worked with these guys in some capacity over the last couple of weeks. I don't know what he said to Pred, but he's got this guy cooking, and I think there's a note to be made on the fact that Pred on the main stage in front of a crowd is always, I think, going to be a different player to what he is online. I think this is just inevitable. Pred is just built different in front of this type of environment is what Pred is absolutely made for, and I'm not surprised that he's playing far better now than he was previously. But it's just, he's such a confidence player, you know, he's such a confidence player, and if he's got the confidence, he's generally going to fry, and he's going to play aggressively, and sure, he's going to lay down in corners, right, but this part of his playstyle, it's about whether he keeps up with Shotzzy, which is the important thing, and he has certainly been doing that. However, these were the problems for OpTic. They creep back into the search and destroy again, and you can't seem to get rid of this with OpTic for whatever reason, right? Every time that OpTic will play a tournament, there'll be something like this happening, and they've got to get this out of their gameplay, right? Because those search and destroy issues are still there to some degree. They go up 4-1 here in this game. Ghosty gets traded out, Dashy gets the trade, but they lose a couple of rounds they should not lose after this. They even did the same thing in the map 5, and all of a sudden it's 4-4. Pred gets Ghosty one shot, goes for the chal, misses a burst here, which is a crucial burst to miss actually, because Ghosty was on 40 health right there. Basically, if Pred hits a bullet, then he makes sure that he doesn't regen and gets the kill. But by the time, because Pred missed that one burst, by the time he re-challed him, Ghosty was then regenning up to like 80 HP, and then even though Pred hit a couple of bullets after that, it wasn't quite enough to kill him. So crazy round. Eventually, Thieves close it out in around 11, and I was like, oh my god. Like, you can't be serious, right? Like, OpTic have done it again. They never make it easy, right? In front of the home crowds, like, the OpTic fans must be watching this thinking, like, Jesus, what more do we have to want and do for these guys to try and win an event? Because, wow, they do not make it easy on themselves. And look, historically, Champs 19, Champs 22, Champs 24, Thieves tend to have OpTic's number, and they're up 2-0 in the current match, but things started to change. The momentum swung certainly in the control. Pred pops a phenomenal 3-piece right about here. I thought they were always going to win this map, to be fair. Great map for OpTic, but then a 6-star hardpoint. This one I thought could definitely go either way, but again, it was a big takeover moment from a couple of different players. Kenny had a great finish to the game for here, actually, but just good teamwork on the whole. But then the question was, could OpTic win a game 5? And we know full well that OpTic Texas, Los Angeles Thieves, sorry, they love to go to game 5 after going up 2-0. They've made a habit out of this over the last few months of Call of Duty. They'll go up 2-0, they'll go to a game 5, and, you know, look, on the other side of the stage, JoeDeceives and Kremp and Ghosty and Nastie, you know, they were standing up, they were bringing a bit of energy to the OpTic guys on the other side of the stage. But of course, here comes Pred, bringing all the energy, calling them trash. Obviously, JoeDeceives was having a hard time as a result, but what a moment this was, right? And, you know, we're always going to talk about moments like this. To win events of this magnitude, you're always going to have difficult game 5s, you're always going to have tricky moments, and to get over the top and win them, that is the biggest challenge. And OpTic, after reverse sweeping Los Angeles Thieves, and yes, Thieves, I'm not surprised that when it mattered, they broke down to some extent. You know, the home crowd, all the pressure on, and OpTic obviously being the favourites anyway, they carried that momentum. But wow, what a way to win it for OpTic. I'm sure it's just going to give them so much confidence for the rest of the tournament here that OpTic can potentially go all the way. And, you know, Shotzzy says, crazy reverse sweep. Let's keep it going, because that's a top 3 finish for OpTic. Obviously, you know, they could go better than that, but that's top 3 minimum for the first time in a long time at the World Championship, right? It's been, as I say, like 4 years since this was even the case, and obviously Pred's throwing up the energy, right? We saw some of the footage here from the 4K angle from the COD League, and, you know, obviously Pred's bringing the energy, and this is what you want to see, right? The entire team bringing the energy. It reminds me a lot, obviously, of what happened back at Major 3, and we know what happened there by the time the tournament concluded, right? So OpTic, they showed lots of resilience. Shotzzy mentioned that in the post-game, and they're now top 3 for the 6th time in their franchise history. 13, 14, 17 where they won, 19, 20, and 24. It's been a long time since OpTic have felt this feeling, and if there's any time to close out, now is the time. But to look at this scoreboard, right? This is what we've seen from OpTic as of late. Shotzzy and Pred going off. They did the same thing yesterday, and that's no issues for OpTic. But, you know, you've got to wonder, can they maintain that? But also, if Dashy or Kenny levels it up a little bit, I think they'll need it if they want to win the tourney. But the absolute banger series were not slowing down after the OpTic versus Thieves one, because this was the series really that was probably the most difficult to call of the entire day, let's be real. I mean, New York Subliners versus FaZe, the two teams that in the first round, early on, back at Major 4, FaZe smoked him, but as the tournament went on, New York had their number. And I was talking to people today, I was like, you know what, I think New York are going to be the team to look at here for this entire tournament. They've done it before, going back to back, and in terms of preparation, in terms of hitting form at the right time, from a mentality perspective as well, no one does it as well as New York do, whether they win this event or not. In terms of like team cohesion and preparation, this team, when they brought in Sib, was intended to go back to back and win the World Championship again. They didn't think they could do it with Priestahh. And I think Simp has shown over the last couple of months exactly why they brought him in. Their hardpoint right now, though, is absolutely absurd. Thanks in large part to HyDra. Like, this game one, I honestly could not believe my eyes. Kismet's out here going double negative, having a really tough series, but HyDra goes 42 in 22 against FaZe nonetheless. Like, the team that are always the most challenging team to beat. The fact that they did this is honestly just still absurd. And this was the crazy moment to me, right? The trash talk was getting everywhere. Like, Cell was standing up at some points here talking trash across the stage, and we even had a HyDra who was literally saying on the comms like, look, Simp, you won the MVP. That's my MVP. I deserve that trophy, right? Like, everyone knew that was true, whether you agree with that or not. Like, HyDra, what a moment, right? I mean, I absolutely love this stuff. I can't get enough of it. Anyway, FaZe won the game 2. They tie up the series. Drazah's walking off, you know, holding the bird up or whatever to the fans because they're talking trash, but they tie up the series. The game 3, though, was ridiculous, and FaZe get the win. I mean, immediately the trash talk resumes, and it's just phenomenal the way that this tournament is going, right? Cellium, how often do you see still stand up talking trash? That's what the FaZe boys do. I think even there were some questions on exactly what Simp had to say, like what he was saying to HyDra, because of course they were asking for trouble, but nonetheless, this was a game 4, Karachi Hardpoint, another absolute whirlwind of a game that I think just shows how far the Subliners have come in many respects. Yes, Kismet got slammed again, and I know that Octane said, you know, dinner on Kiz tonight, because he definitely did not play his best COD today, and his team still got the win against FaZe, even with Kiz having a 0.6, which is ridiculous. But also it shows how far they've come in terms of their game understanding here, because they got outslayed by 11 kills. Let's not forget, not long ago, we were having this convo against New York, saying, wow, they've outslayed and they've lost. But no, they won by 26 points, getting outslayed by 11 kills, which is not something you'd typically say of the Subliners. And then we go to what was inevitably going to be a phenomenal Game 5 search and destroy invasion. Super tense. And it was Skyz in a couple of very similar moments here against Cellium in 1v1s, getting the win in these moments, clutching up these 1v1s over towards B. And aBeZy was delivering the first bloods, but Subliners were delivering in the mid rounds. And this is, you know, I thought this series was probably going to go 5. I thought that if it goes 5, I felt like Subliners were going to be favoured. And that's what happens because Sib, and there were moments, especially from Sib in this game, complete takeover moments here, especially down the stretch. And again, FaZe, they just don't get the job done. Now, it's very rare for FaZe not to make a winners finals. It's very rare for them to be in losers, certainly this early. And, you know, will they still make a run to the grand finals? Absolutely possible, but it's not going to be easy for them to achieve exactly that, right? And by Subliners, who, you know, look, FaZe were going in as the tournament favourites, but in many respects, you've got to realise why Subliners were considered to potentially be the team to beat. And, well, they've proven that today. It's not job done yet. They will play OpTic in the next round, and I feel like for OpTic, that's kind of what you want, right? Yes, Subliners look like the best team in the world right now, but if you're OpTic, would you rather play New York or FaZe? You know, maybe you look at New York and think they're a bit more vulnerable, maybe. I mean, Kiz had a 0.6 here, he had 62 kills, 104 deaths, and they still went on to win the series. So you think, look, if Kiz turns up, they're going to win easily, but it never works as simple as that. But this sets up a storyline, and we were talking about this on the watch party today. Slasher gave his thoughts on it and said, look, if this happens, it would be remarkable, but it's definitely possible now. And I should have put more spicy emojis on this for sure, but, you know, the idea that we're in losers round 2 and we literally have Toronto versus FaZe. It's Miami versus Thieves on the other side. This side of the bracket is Toronto FaZe, and the loser goes home. Top 6. It's Scrappy versus Drazah. It's everything you ever wanted, and the loser's team is going to blow it up. Let's be real. If you finish top 6 of this tournament, you are not keeping that roster for next season. So we've got so much, I'm sure, of course, to talk about tomorrow. What a day it's going to be then. But this is what I've been talking about for the tournament so far, right? The event in many ways has been phenomenal. What it needs is the storylines. And if you had to create the storylines, like, this is as good as you could possibly do the job of, right? Like, the script writers have been going absolutely insane. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.